Hi everybody, I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter Clayton's behind the camera. And welcome to The Garage in the Court of Public Opinion on Facebook, and you're listening to us maybe as a podcast. Now what we're going to do from the end of, Pete, what is it, next week?
End of next week, yeah.
From the end of next week, we are going to be broadcasting only the podcast, which you can get from your favourite podcast supplier, and I think Andy Martin has put us up on all sorts of different platforms. We're not hard to find. So there'll be one podcast each day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but no Facebook. This is after next Friday. Not this coming Friday, but the following Friday. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, then we go live on the Friday for 3 hours and it's better really, because we can have guests, we can have phone calls, we can have music, we can have all sorts of things, which and being live, of course, it's a far, far better thing, because we do pre-record these episodes of the Court of Public Opinion in the Garage, and sometimes history catches up with us, and I feel embarrassed that things overtake us. So that won't happen from the end of next week. I hope you'll follow us through, and if you can find us on Facebook, I'm sure you can find us as a podcast, and I'm sure you can find us on jeremycordeaux.com. Just so easy. I mean, even I can do it. The greatest Luddite of all times. God. Bill Shorten, on the front page of the Telegraph. Got to tell you about this. You wouldn't have seen the Telegraph, and I don't know if it was picked up by the other News Limited papers. But he was talking about the thieves who have stolen millions from the NDIS. Like he has just discovered this. Ministerial responsibility, Minister? Several people in the story, several people who have control of up to 8 separate companies providing services to the NDIS have stolen $9 million. The Minister, Bill Shorten, appears on the front page of the Daily Telegraph on the weekend, last weekend, talking about the McMansions, built on the suffering of the handicapped and the disabled. Well, I'm sorry. You are the minister in charge. How could these people rob the NDIS of millions of dollars, of which you are now critical, without you knowing about it? You designed or helped to design this monster, which has the potential, of course, to send the country bankrupt. I'm sorry, sir, I think you're a disgrace. And the media is no better, because I don't know how long I've been sitting here and behind a microphone at AA talking about this very thing, this disgraceful waste of money, misuse of public money, the rorts that we've come to know as the NDIS. Beyond belief. The ABC, not critical. The rest of the media, no. I haven't seen a thing in criticism of Bill Shorten. It's funny, isn't it? Now, what I want to do today, Pete tells me, I've already confessed to you that I'm a Luddite, so I'm totally in Pete's hands with technology. What we're going to do, I'm not sure how long it is, but we're going to run the story I talked to you about, or gave you a précis of yesterday, Peter Credlin's story on Sky News about, as the Prime Minister speaks. He says I'm going to install the Aboriginal statement, Uluru Statement from the Heart, in full. And it's a one-pager, it's benign, it's full of love and understanding. And what Peter Credlin has come up with is something which is profoundly different and profoundly important. And, ladies and gentlemen, it is impossible that the Prime Minister would not know this. Yet he is presenting it as being something which clearly it is not. So I will hand over now to Peter Credlin. Now watch this. She's done a brilliant piece of research. And as I said to you yesterday, I think she's belled the cat.
But first, the Uluru Statement from the Heart that's constantly referenced to justify the creation of an Indigenous voice to the Parliament is normally thought to be just one page. At least that's what most Australians think it is, in part because that's what the Prime Minister has repeatedly told them.
The Uluru Statement from the Heart, I'd encourage people to read. It'll take you about 2 minutes. You can fit it on one A4 page. That's the request. And to read the words that are there in the referendum going forward that are very clear as well.
Here he is again on the one-pager.
The Uluru Statement from the Heart does speak to our hearts. A short document, long in the making. It is a masterclass in spare eloquence. I keep a copy of it on the wall of my office in Parliament House, and there isn't a day that I don't look up to it. Sometimes I focus on a couple of lines, but often I read it right through. If you haven't, I do recommend that you do. Like the Gettysburg Address, it only requires a few minutes. It literally fits on one A4 page.
And again,
the beautiful statement, frankly, that can be fitted on one A4 page, and I'd encourage your listeners to have a read of that.
Only that's not true. It's a lie. The Uluru Statement from the Heart is not a one-page document. It's actually 26 pages in all, and we only know that because the government's been forced to release the full document under Freedom of Information, FOI. And it's the whole 26 pages of the Uluru Statement from the Heart that every Australian should read, not the PM's sanitised one-pager, before they cast their vote in the upcoming referendum. And here's why. Because the whole tenor of the full Statement from the Heart and of the 13 meetings leading up to it, as revealed in these official documents, again available under FOI only, is of anger, grievance, separatism, the need to undo as far as possible the last 240 years of Australian history. And it's this complete statement, all 26 pages, that the Prime Minister has declared time and time again that his government is committed to implementing in full.
And on behalf of the Australian Labor Party, I commit to the Uluru Statement from the Heart in full. And I recommit on behalf of the government that I proudly lead to the implementation of the Uluru Statement from the Heart in full. And I'm proud to lead a government that's committed to implementing the Uluru Statement from the Heart in full.
Dozens and dozens of times he's made that commitment. And what's more, we also know this week that implementing the Uluru Statement, Voice, Truth, Treaty in full will form part of Labor's official party platform coming out of the National Conference in a couple of weeks' time. So what's this until now secret statement got to say? Now it states, and I quote, The invasion that started in Botany Bay is the origin of the fundamental grievance between the old and new Australians. This is the time, it says, of the frontier wars, when massacres, disease and poison decimated First Nations, even as they fought a guerrilla war of resistance. The Tasmanian genocide and the Black War, waged by the colonists, reveals the truth about this evil time. By making agreements at the highest level, the negotiation process with the Australian government allows First Nations to express our sovereignty. Now, agreements at the highest level, a negotiation process, it says, with the Australian government on a treaty. Now, that's directly at odds, isn't it, with what the Prime Minister said on ABC Radio this week.
If the voice passes, will you move to trying to negotiate a treaty or treaties?
No, Patricia, because that's occurring with the states are occurring.
So you're saying the Commonwealth will never have a role with treaties?
Right now. No, Patricia, what I'm saying is that what the No campaign want to do is to focus on everything that's not happening and nothing that is.
Now, that's not right, is it? Because the Uluru Statement, he says he'll implement it in full. Well, it demands treaties with the Australian government, his government, and he knows it. Here is Anthony Albanese, his opposition leader, admitting this very fact.
And truth must be followed by a Makarrata Commission. Makarrata is about conflict resolution, justice and, crucially, self-determination. It's a path to national treaty that acknowledges the pre-existing rights of people in a land where sovereignty was never ceded, that acknowledges that we are on what is Aboriginal land, always was, always will be.
And contrary to the PM's current poll-panicked claim that the Voice is not about treaties, these official documents confirm that treaties indeed are the whole point of the Uluru Statement. The full Uluru Statement document, hidden from voters until now, says in black and white that, quote, Makarrata is another word for treaty or agreement making, and it is the culmination of our agenda. So let's be very, very clear here. The Voice is just the start. The Voice is just the beginning. And in the words of the Uluru document itself, treaties between Indigenous Australians and the rest of us are the end point, the culmination. Critically, the full Uluru Statement also proposes a whole series of steps, including what they call a roadmap, to establish a treaties commission, this Makarrata Commission. Now, the intention is for the Makarrata Commission to act as an umpire sitting above the Parliament and the executive government in negotiations with the Voice and individual First Nations. Now, this is in the documents on page 26. It also exposes what's happening now by stealth, where it says the Parliament would begin work establishing the Commission even before legislating the Voice. That's on page 23. And we know this is happening because the Albanese government has already allocated over $5 million to do this in the budget. They've already spent around $900,000 to date. And yet on every day this week, the Indigenous Minister, Linda Burney, has refused to answer any questions in the Parliament about the Makarrata Commission or where this money has been spent to date. But that's not the worst of it. That's not the end of the Albanese government's bad faith by keeping these documents from voters and pretending that the Uluru Statement was a much more benign one-pager. The full 26 pages of the Uluru Statement also set out in granular detail things such as the Voice being, and I quote, accommodated on an appropriate site within the parliamentary circle in Canberra. It says that it must also be supported by a sufficient and guaranteed budget with access to its own independent secretariat, experts and lawyers. That's all on page 22 of the until now secret documents. And this marries up with what I've been told by people who still talk to me in the public service out of Canberra, that a lot of them are involved in reviewing the plans of the Parliament House building, working out where they'll locate this new voice, where they'll build the voice a chamber of its own. Like the House, like the Senate, there'll be a chamber for the voice, and where all these new voice members will be accommodated. The new officers, the staffers and the salaries, which I'm told must be at least equivalent to elected MPs. Talk about a third chamber. That's what Malcolm Turnbull once very aptly described the voice as. But here is the worst of what the full Uluru Statement from the Heart proposes. Reparations. Compensation paid by taxpayers, including options such as a financial settlement based on a percentage of Australia's GDP. Now let's repeat that. It's a quote, such as seeking a percentage of GDP, the resolution of land, water and resources issues. Now, if in any doubt about the radical nature of the changes sought by activists behind this voice, you can thumb through the 86 pages of lead-up deliberations that preceded the full 26 pages of the Statement of the Heart that is now available for you at home on the Sky News website. So be in no doubt that if the voice gets up, there will soon be two classes of Australians. Those with ancestry extending back tens of thousands of years, increasingly consumed with a sense of grievance and entitlement, even though modern Australia is almost entirely colourblind. And then those whose ancestry in this country goes back no further than 1788, who will be expected to pay compensation for the privilege of living in the nation that they and their ancestors have helped create. And this is all there in the documents now available, whatever smoke screen the PM and other Yes campaigners want to try and throw up. As I said in the Australian newspaper today, the whole point of the voice is to transform forever the least racist country on earth. Please read the full 26-page Uluru Statement, now on the Sky News website. The full statement.
I think that is a very, very significant broadcast. I'm only sorry that not more people. I don't know how many people look at Sky News. I mentioned to you yesterday that I don't get Sky News. I don't have Foxtel. But more people need to hear that story. I mean, that is important, truth-telling. Very important. We'll be back tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. And on Friday, I would love you to come on and talk to me when we are live streaming on jeremycordo.com and talk to me about what you think of a Prime Minister who would present something like the Uluru Statement from the Heart as being of absolutely no danger, problem, confrontation, consequence, nothing. And yet you have this foul document which is dedicated really to declaring basically war on white Australia. I should do the dates, shouldn't I? Just quickly, some dates. August 9, happy birthday if you're having a birthday. Happy wedding anniversary. 1899, P.L. Travers, the British writer, came up with Mary Poppins. Golly. Born in Maryborough in Australia. She died in 1996, but born in 1899. Rudolf Diesel, German scientist, engineer. He obtains a patent, which was patent number 608845 for his internal combustion engine, known later as the diesel engine. That was in 1898. The construction of the Tower of Pisa takes 2 centuries to complete. 1173. I mean, why would they build it if it was leaning? Wouldn't you think they'd have taken some remedial action? Hey, listen, I think it's something a bit wonky with the foundation. Yeah. Oh, dear. Yeah. The opening of the Sistine Chapel at the Vatican in 1483. The lovely Whitney Houston, American singer, I Will Always Love You. Want to dance with somebody? That was a great song too. Actress, The Bodyguard, film producer. Oh dear, tragic life, you know. It was just basically drugs, I'm afraid. But she died in 2012, but born in 1963. Beautiful lady, tragic life, cut short.
Interesting that Dolly Parton wrote I Will Always Love You.
Yes, and Dolly Parton always says that it is perhaps her favourite song, and it took this woman, Whitney Houston, to actually sing it the way it should have been sung. Dear, oh dear. What else can I tell you? 1927, Marvin Minsky, American artificial intelligence computer scientist at the MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, was born in New York City, 1927. Died in 2016. Richard Nixon resigns as President of the United States. Vice President Gerald Ford sworn in to take his place as the 38th President of the United States, this day in 1974. Singapore separates from the Federation of Malaysia, gains independence on this day in 1965. I'm a great fan of Singapore. Wonderful, wonderful place, clean, well ordered. I know people say it's a police state. I don't believe that. I just think it's a civilized place. I love Singapore. Sharon Tate, the American actress, murdered by the Manson gang. She was only 26, pregnant at the time. The year was 1969. First horses arrive in Hawaii. Golly. 1803. Tennis superstar Serena Williams announces her intention to retire. During an interview with Vogue magazine, 2022 was the year, this was the day, and, you know, a sad but I suppose inevitable consequence of war. This day is remembered in 1945 for the Americans dropping the second atomic bomb. It was Fat Man. It was dropped on Nagasaki in Japan, destroying part of the city, but indeed finishing the Second World War, which needed to be finished. I mean, you wouldn't want to have to go fighting house to house with the... What are you going to bring me, Caroline?
You know how Sue is sending you the 26 pages?
Yes.
She's just sent me this from the post office.
This is the Uluru Statement from the Heart, yes?
Yes. We'll read what she's just put on
Okay.
the top bit.
All right. It says, on the express bag address, it says, traditional place name, if known. You've got to be kidding. You put the traditional place name when you address an envelope? Look, I think the world is going crazy. 3% of the population, for God's sake. For heaven's sake, get real. We'll see you tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very, very much. Believe in yourself. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Peter Clayton and I will be back. Thank you for viewing the Court of Public Opinion.